Hello, everybody. Welcome back up to the Vinyl Attic, where we talk about vinyl in the attic. And we're doing this 100 count through, 100 albums that matter, 100 albums that should be in your vinyl collection, according to me. We're now that we're on the back half, we're starting to revisit some folks, and there's an album that just must be in this count through. It has become one of my favorite albums on vinyl ever. Listening to it on vinyl, to me, gives me the thrill of listening to Dark Side of the Moon on vinyl when I was 12 years old. We're going back to talk about Tay-Tay. We're going to talk about Taylor Swift's 2020 COVID album, Folklore. We have to talk about this record. There's a lot of anti-Taylor Swift business out there, and I was one of those people who, and we've talked about this on this channel, I was sort of late to the Taylor Swift is actually a legitimate musician, songwriter, bandwagon, and now that I'm fully in it, I'm fully in it. We talked about her Midnight's album on our count through. We've recounted the excitement of Cozy and I going to the Eras tour last December and seeing Taylor in person, which was an amazing experience. But I want to talk about this album. I want to talk about this album as an album worthy of your consideration. There's a kind of an interesting story behind this album. She had this great album, her Lovers album, which in a way I think is her most commercially accessible album. It's just so full of great songs, including I'm Drunk in the Back of the Car, Cruel Summer, and a million other great songs. She was supposed to go on tour in early 2020, and then COVID hit. And we all remember that 5 years ago. I mean, I'm thinking that this past week is the 5th anniversary of COVID being deemed a global pandemic, and how we all just shut down. Everything shut down. Work shut down, school shut down, going out to see bands shut down, hanging out in bars shut down. Our local bar here, the last night they were there, we closed it down, and with Hey Jude playing on the jukebox and everybody hugging each other, which probably isn't a good idea during a pandemic, and all sort of cried and said, we'll see you if we survive this thing. I mean, it was a time of incredible anxiety and fear. And also sort of this turning inward. We became house people. Instead of being out in the world, we were house people. And so instead of Taylor Swift going out and doing a Lovers tour, album tour, that kind of thing, she just sort of hunkered down in her house in Los Angeles and started writing and taking in some of this anxiety about the world, but also using it as an opportunity to challenge herself, because she, is always writing songs about breakups and love and all the things. She started writing about other people and challenging herself to be more than an autobiographical songwriter. Can she write these narratives in sort of the traditional folk ballad style? And started generating this amazing music. So going remote, like all of us did, we started discovering Zoom and how to order food online and things like that. She started working remotely with Aaron from The National, Aaron Dessner, and Jack Atnoff from The Bleachers. Both great bands. I mean, I love The National so much. Bleachers to me was always kind of like a Bruce Springsteen wannabe band, sending files back and forth, co-writing songs. She was also kind of sequestered or quarantined with her boyfriend at the time, Joe, who was the subject of much of her last album, deep in love, and so kind of channeling some of that being locked away with your boyfriend. And out of this weird situation comes this album that is not only personal, but it also is tapped into the folk tradition of the narrative, of the ballad, of the telling the story of other people, writing songs from other people's perspective, something that Bob Dylan made very famous in the early 60s. Now, in 2020, here's Taylor Swift. So this album is released in July of 2020. It's kind of a surprise. Nobody knew it was going to happen. It just dropped. And then I was still not on board the Taylor thing then. I remember hearing about it, but I know that people all of a sudden started saying, wait a second, this is good. This is good music. This is deep. This is complex. There's a lot going on here. The lyrics are amazing. I mean, the song, The One, which is the opening of the track. Whenever I hear somebody say Taylor Swift doesn't have good melodies, I just send them The One. Because it's so I mean, this woman, here's the deal. Okay, here's the deal. I want to say this. I read an article in the 1990s that said, based on the limited number of notes that are available and a limited number of beats and space between beats, there's only like 10,000 more songs that can be written from now to the end of time. We're just running out of notes and we're running out of ways to rearrange them. Everything's been done. You might as well just sort of give up. And the melodies that this woman produces just blow my mind. So the opening bit, and it starts off with this great little line, I'm doing good, I'm in some new shit, that is just, it's just, you know, captures that moment of the beginning of the pandemic. I'm saying yes instead of no. You know, it's just, it really is a great little melody. There's a great song on here called Exile with Bon Iver. I never know how to say his name. I always think of him as the guy in the winter cabin. So he's also sequestered away. Exile just has this great line. You're not my homeland anymore, so what am I defending now? I mean, it's gut-wrenching. It's gut-wrenching. And there's a song about a ghost who shows up at their own funeral. I didn't have it in myself to go with grace. My tears ricochet. Great song of peace. There's this great meditation at the end of the record. But I think the core of the record is this trilogy. She wrote these 3 songs about these 3 characters and did a song from each perspective. The song on the album that is my favorite, and perhaps my favorite Taylor Swift album song of all time, is called Cardigan. It's about this girl, Betty, and her relationship with this teenage boy. They're these teenagers. Then there's this song, August, which is this woman that the boy, James, had a fling with. And then there's Betty at the end, which is James singing to Betty about, you know, I really screwed up, you know, will you ever take me back? And it's this teenage opera. It's almost like a Pete Townsend kind of thing, where all these songs are kind of woven together and reflect each other's perspective. And it must have been so much fun for her to write these songs from other people's perspectives instead of saying, here's my latest breakup story, or here's my sort of picture of life at this moment in time. She when she was interviewed about it, she said she was channeling a lot of Bob Dylan, that she was really inspired by Free Will and Bob Dylan and John Wesley Harding and Bob Dylan's deep dive into the American roots history and genre and perspective. And so it's really informed by all that. When it comes out, of course, it's huge. Makes a big splash, you know, streams, breaks the internet, all that kind of stuff. I thought it was interesting that Rolling Stone, on their very famous and controversial 500 best albums of all time, included Folklore, right there at 170 between Sonic Youth's Daydream Nation and Billy Joel's The Stranger. So it got the perspective and the respect of the kind of music heads who might have written off Taylor Swift as a pop princess before that. And it is so warm on vinyl because it is that moment during the pandemic when everything shut down, right? And there's all this anxiety and fear, and we all turned inward. And what I was thinking about this album, one of the reasons I kind of now really appreciate this album, is that creativity often requires that. It requires some chaos. It requires crisis. It requires something to be dramatically different. You can't just be like, oh, yeah, I'm going to write a great pop song. Well, some people can do that. I mean, I think Taylor Swift can do that. But to have something plopped on you that you weren't expecting, some historical circumstance. I mean, think of all the great music that came out of the second half of the 60s, was largely informed by what the hell was all of a sudden happening in the world. I mean, think about the radical change from 65 to 70. How could that not affect the creative process of people in that moment? So this is really captures that, and it's very inward, as many of her songs are, but it feels like being at home. It feels like being at home. And there was a great little documentary about this. It was recorded at the Long Pond studio where she brings in her two producers and they talk about the songs. And there's an LP vinyl version of it that is like the holy grail for Swifties. If you can find Folklore, the Long Pond sessions on vinyl, you found something very valuable. I would love to have this. Is sort of like finding the Beatles Butcher cover to be able to get this. It was just a very limited release. While they were there making that documentary, it's still under COVID, still 2020, they started working on some other songs that became the follow-up, the sister album to Folklore, Evermore, which it continues the vibe, continues the feel. Cozy, I think, likes Evermore more than Folklore. I like Folklore because it sort of came first, and I think the songs on it are brilliant, but the songs sort of fit together. On the Eras tour, one of the sad things about the Eras tour, since she had to include the new stuff from her most recent album on the album, the Tortured Poets Department, she collapsed the Evermore section and the Folklore section into one section. And so there's fewer songs from that era. But it was still great. It was still great to see Cardi again. I sang my heart out every single word when she played Cardigan, like I was a little Swiftie. I think we should ask Cozy her perspective on the Folklore versus Evermore debate. Which one's better? Okay, so the question is, what's better, Folklore or Evermore?
That's an illegal question.
It's an illegal question? Okay, is there one that you like more? All right.
I can't say.
Well, she didn't have much to say, but I know she loves this album. You know, I think over time, a lot of the noise about Taylor Swift, you know, about her boyfriends and how she fits into politics and kind of all that will fade away, and the music that she's made will be talked about the way we talk about Joni Mitchell now, or the way we talk about any great singer-songwriter. These are a quality, deeply introspective, and amazingly musical, well-produced records. And I think of them, and there are many that I could have added to this list, but of them, I think that Folklore is the best. It captures that moment of you know, what the heck is happening in the world that we first felt when the pandemic struck in 2020. And she shared that feeling with us with these beautiful songs, including about ghosts, which is kind of fitting, including about struggle and about teenage love. I mean, it's sort of the you know, the bare basics of the music that we love is about teenage love. So it's just brilliant. I can't recommend this enough. If you haven't really drove into the Taylor Swift cave, I mean, just put the needle down on track 1, side 1, and you'll be hooked. It's just so, it's so warm. It's so warm. It's such a beautiful album. I can't believe how good it is, and I feel stupid for not listening to it right when it came out, because I got to use it during the pandemic instead of all that Tiger King I was watching. Next time we're going to talk about a true classic, a record that really helped change the face of rock music in the 70s. We're going to talk about the first Roxy Music album, Roxy Music. We got to talk about that record. We've talked about Brian Eno. We got to talk about Brian Ferry. It's such an important record. So that's going to be next time on Final Fetish. In the meantime, this woman matters. You know, no matter what no matter what you know the work that this woman has done to make the world a better place. She matters. This album matters. It captures the pandemic moment so well. All this music matters. You matter. So let's talk about it.